guys, today I wanted to do an updated video about how I plan out my trips as far as booking my dining and FastPass reservations and which park I'm going to visit. So I just filmed showing you the template that I use, and it's a bit rambly, so I'm sorry for that, but I wanted to really explain in case some of you are new and didn't know kind of how I plan out my time in the parks as far as which park I visit in the morning and which I visit in the evening. But yeah, I went through and filled this out with you. It's a little messy, but yeah, I filled this out. So if you want to see how I plan out my trips, then keep watching. Okay, so here is my template that I started with. And I have done something very similar to this for years as far as booking, when I book my trip to Disney, as far as figuring out my schedule. Now I know this can be very overwhelming for a lot of people, but I hope you can see the way that I do this, that it doesn't have to be. So I have the days that I'm gonna be there over the top, and then I'll just put the date of whatever, whatever trip I have. And then this is my arrival date, because we'll usually go to the parks in the evening on the arrival date. And then this is our last full day in the park. And so then the day that we leave is not actually on this paper. So then on the left-hand side, I have the AM park, because I've mentioned several times now in a couple of videos where we visit one park in the morning, and then we go back to the hotel for a rest and a swim, and then we visit a different park in the evening. So I have the AM and the PM park, and then we have the lunch reservation and a dinner reservation. And if I am just planning on getting a quick service meal, I'll just put NA. But otherwise, I'll write down the name of the restaurant, and then I have notes, and down here I will put if we want to, say we want to eat somewhere at the Magic Kingdom around the time of the fireworks, or Epcot around the time of the fireworks, and I want to try and plan a dinner on there, I'll write the time of illuminations at such and such a time, or Happily Ever After, which is the new fireworks show that replaced Wishes at the Magic Kingdom, at this time, that kind of thing. If we're going to a party, if we're going to Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party or Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, I would write that down in this section. And then, so that this part is a little new for me, but I found it to be helpful for this trip. And then, or I should say my next trip, because this one is kind of just an example. And then I will write the FastPasses down here that I have booked. So I'm not filling this out all at once. So in the very beginning, once the schedule is out, the first thing I'm doing is just planning out what days I'm going to the parks. So like I said, this first one is the day we arrive, so I'm not going to be going to a park in the morning. And then, let's see here. I'm kind of loosely basing this off of my last park plan. But I had mentioned before, we normally visit morning extra magic hour parks, with the exception of on this day, here, I'll write here. I'll write EMH for extra magic hours. Now this is our first full day in the park, and we want our first morning park a lot of times to be the Magic Kingdom. So in this case, we were gonna skip the Hollywood Studios morning extra magic hours so that we could go to the Magic Kingdom for the first day. But usually we will visit those. So my handwriting is not very good, especially at this angle. So like this day is Animal Kingdom, and we're gonna go for extra magic hours. And I do have something else. I will have a different schedule that has the actual park hours, but I know that morning extra magic hours are starting at 8 in the morning. So we have to be to Animal Kingdom a little before 8. And then this is Hollywood Studios. So these days I don't have an EMH next to them. So that means that I'm just going for the regular park hours, not for extra magic hours. And this day there are no morning extra magic hours. And this day, we're not going to, oh boy, we're not going to visit a park in the morning. Oh dear, I normally have like okay writing, but this is really, okay, hang on, we'll just, Okay, well, it's getting worse. So we're just going to sleep in this day, and then we're going to have brunch later. And then on this day, we're going to do, this is a very difficult angle for me to write at. And there. So I fill in all the morning parks I'm going to visit first. And then I'm going to fill in the evening parks. So I will put okay, so I write in the PM parks we're going to visit. And now I wrote in the extra magic hours, and you'll see that we're not attending those parks. And the reason we're not attending the extra magic hours parks here is because we always avoid the PM extra magic hours parks. And I've mentioned this before, but in case you haven't seen any of those videos, in our experience, the morning extra magic hours, which start at 8 in the morning, are the best as far as crowds. You don't have a lot of crowds at that time. However, as it gets closer to the general park hours, so in the case of the morning extra magic hours, as it gets closer to 9 a.m., it starts getting busier and busier because people start trickling in. Now, the opposite is kind of true for the PM extra magic hours. So in the beginning, you still say the park normally closes at 9, and then it has PM extra magic hours from 9 until midnight. At 9:30, the park is still going to be pretty busy, but once you get toward 11 p.m., then it's going to start to empty out, maybe even sooner. But my point is, the later on for the PM extra magic hours, the emptier the park will get. And because we want to go to bed earlier so that we can get up for the morning extra magic hours, we don't want to stay out until very late to take advantage of the PM extra magic hours. So that's kind of how we base that. And additionally, because the morning extra magic hours are only 1 hour and the evening extra magic hours are anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, I think that has a big impact on where people will go if they just have base tickets. Because I don't know that somebody's going to go somewhere for just 1 hour in the morning. If it's a park that has morning and evening, if it's a day where there's morning and evening extra magic hours, which I don't think there ever is, but if that were to happen, I don't think people are going to base their decision on where to go based on 1 extra hour in the morning, is my point. Especially if people are going to stay up very late to stay in the extra magic hours park, they're not going to be worrying about getting up early the next day to get to a park by 8 in the morning. So I think a lot of times, for example, here, if Epcot has the evening extra magic hours, I would guess that they're probably going to go to their morning park a little bit later so that they can stay in the park later in the day. Hopefully that makes sense. It was kind of rambly. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is what I figure out. And then my husband and I do this together. And then we figure out, okay, which parks do we want to make sure we see in the evening? And how many times do we want to visit each park? I always like to have Epcot be my last park. I don't know why. It's my favorite evening park, which you'll see because I'm going there 3 times. And then 2 Magic Kingdoms in the evenings, 1 Animal Kingdom in the evening, and then 1 Hollywood Studios in the evening. And then for the most part, wherever there's morning extra magic hours. So from there, we kind of like do a tally and say, okay, we're going to Magic Kingdom so many times and Epcot so many times, et cetera, et cetera. And then we figure out where we want to have our dining reservations. So keep this one. The next thing we did was book our reservations for dining. So this day, since we're just arriving, I don't have to worry about that. And I wanted to eat late at Epcot at a restaurant that has visibility of Illuminations. So I wanted it to be my first day. Okay, so Illuminations is at 9 p.m. here. And so I wanted to eat at a restaurant that would have visibility of Illuminations. So I just went through and initially I wanted Rose and Crown. I couldn't get any dining reservations there, so I got one in Mexico for La Hacienda de San Angel at 8:30 p.m. And then this day, we're going to be at Hollywood Studios for the evening, so I knew I wanted, at some point in this trip, I knew I wanted to eat at the Brown Derby. We did that for the first time our last trip, and I loved it. Okay, so normally we're only gonna do one table service meal a day, so since I have the Brown Derby here, I'm just gonna put an NA here because we would just do quick service that day. And then this day, we are switching resorts, so I'm not sure what the plan is, so I did not make a table service reservation in advance. And here we are going to be at Hollywood Studios in the morning, and now Hollywood Studios doesn't have a ton to do right now because a lot of things are closed for refurbishment, but there's still a lot of our favorite rides are there, including, or I should say some of our favorite rides, Tower of Terror, Rock and Roller Coaster. We really like Toy Story Mania, so we don't ever want to skip that park, but I did want to have an earlier lunch reservation. And it's been a couple of years since I've been to Sci-Fi, so I wanted to try that again. I guess not try it, but I wanted to eat there. So I had a little bit of an earlier reservation because the park is opening at 9, it's scheduled to open at 9 that day. So 2.5 hours will give us enough time to do a lot of things there and not have to worry about, okay, now we have another couple hours of time to kill before we have our lunch reservation. So I did not schedule a dining reservation there. Hopefully you can still see. Okay, so this day I wanted to eat at Narcoossee's at the Grand Floridian. So I looked to see what time Happily Ever After is, and it's at 9 p.m. And again, I wanted to be able to watch the fireworks from the water. So I got a late, oh no, oh crisis, oh my Lord. Okay, that's better. Hopefully it's still straight. So, I made a late dinner reservation at Narcoossee's, and I purposely thought of this. So I'm like, okay, what time will we have to leave Animal Kingdom in order to get back to the Grand Floridian we'll have to be there by about 8:30 to get to our dinner reservation on time. So I planned those things out in advance, and it's not like it's complicated. I just thought of that. You have to allow enough time for transportation, you know, to make it worth it, because we do go back to the hotel. Now, because I did this on a day where we are not visiting a morning park, so we'll take it easy and then go to Animal Kingdom earlier than we normally would in the evenings. So instead of going at maybe 5 or 6, we would go at 4. So we would still have, you know, maybe like 3 to 4 hours at Animal Kingdom before we had to leave to go to Narcoossee's. So we just kind of kept that in the back of our mind. And like I said, we are sleeping in this day, so we are going to do brunch. So this is the one exception where I don't think I've ever done 2 table service meals in a day, but there's the exception. And then the following day I have an exception too, actually. That's kind of funny. I didn't notice that. Okay, so this day, and again, I booked an early one because Epcot in the morning, there's not a ton to do, which is why we're only visiting it once in the morning. There's, you know, only Future World is open, and I can't go on Mission Space. Actually, it's currently closed for refurbishment. I'm not sure when it's scheduled to reopen, but I can't go on Mission Space anyway. So there's not a ton to do in the morning. So again, I scheduled an earlier lunch reservation. And because we're gonna be there 3 times in the evening, so I don't get bent out of shape about not getting enough time in that park. Okay, and then this day, I decided, well, I should say we decided. I didn't just make this decision on my own. But I talked to my husband. We'd both been to, since we always go together, we've been to Be Our Guest 3 times. We've been for lunch and dinner. And we both really love that restaurant. It's very cool. I don't know. I think he probably prefers it for, I want to say he told me he prefers it for the quick service lunch, and I prefer it for the table service dinner. We've never done the quick service breakfast, but I imagine it's similar to the quick service lunch. So we rotate every other trip. We'll do be our guest for quick service, and then the next trip we'll do be our guest for the table service. So this time we are scheduled to do be our guest for the table service. And then this last day I don't have any dining reservations. So I think my thinking, and I did this, booked this quite a while ago now, was that since I have 2 here, I'm not gonna have any here. And since I have 2 here, I won't have any here. So this is where it was at for a long time, because you book your dining reservations 180 days, which is 6 months prior to the start of your trip. Do you have to? Not necessarily. It depends on what time of year you're going. If you're going during a busy time of year, the restaurants fill up a lot faster, and it depends on where you want to eat. Certain restaurants book up very quickly. Be Our Guest books up extremely quickly. So does Chef Mickey's and Cinderella's Royal Table. If you want to eat at any of those 3 restaurants, for sure, I would say you have to book exactly at 180 days prior to the start of your trip. And I actually waited like a couple of hours. I didn't get up early to book them. I waited until like 8 or 9 Central Time. And like I said, there were some things that were gone. Like here, I wanted to eat in the United Kingdom at Epcot, and that was not available. So I was just flexible with it. I was like, okay, what else? Where else can I eat to get a good view? And they have really good churros with caramel sauce at their quick service place in Mexico, so I imagine I can get them there too. I digress. So like I said, it was like this for a long time, several months. So then it came time to book the FastPasses. So what I did was I made a little asterisk. I made a little asterisk on every day to show where I wanted to book the FastPasses, because you can book them in 1 park per day. So because we're not visiting any park in the morning here, obviously I'm gonna book them here. Here, if I'm visiting a morning extra magic hours park, I will always, I say always, I'm sure there's an exception to this rule where I haven't done it, but usually I will book the extra magic hours for the PM, because like I said, we can get a lot done in that first hour. So here I knew I'm gonna book my extra magic hour, or my FastPasses here, since there's morning extra magic hours here. And then the days where there's not morning extra magic hours, I book them in the morning. My thinking being, I can use my 3 and then go on the My Disney Experience app and book additional after that for the PM park. So since I'm only visiting 1 park here, that one was a no-brainer. Here we're having morning extra magic hours, so I would book it here and here. And then on this day, since we're not visiting the morning extra magic hours park, that's a weird exception to my own rule, I was gonna book it there. So, yep, I have all the days covered. So then I figured this out the night before. You book your FastPasses 60 days prior to the start of your trip if you're staying on property. So I figured out, I pulled this back out and I looked at it the day before I was gonna book this. I'm like, okay, which parks do I have to, you know, and I know my own rules. I knew that just by looking at this, I'm not going to book FastPasses here. I'm gonna book them here because that's what works for us. But I wanted this process to go quickly because I didn't have a lot of time the next morning and I didn't want to have to think about it. So this allowed me to do it really fast. I could just see like, okay, Sunday morning, I need to find Magic Kingdom FastPasses, and I did it that way. So then as I booked them, I would write them down. The 3 times where I didn't use all 3 FastPasses is when the FastPasses were in PM parks and it wasn't necessary. And actually, I really only needed one of them. Like, you don't need a FastPass for Spaceship Earth in the evening, but this one I kind of just did because this is like one of my husband's all-time favorite rides, so I just kind of did it for him. It was unnecessary, but I had it to use, and I thought he'd be like, oh, our first one is going to be Spaceship Earth. So, and I was right, he did react that way. So this doesn't mean that we're not going to go on another ride, but you can't, the 2 rides, well, the 3 rides at Epcot that really need or are useful to have FastPasses for are Soarin', Test Track, and Frozen Ever After. I should say, I imagine Mission Space 2 is a very popular one, but I can't go on that one, so we just leave that out. But we're not going to do Frozen Ever After this time because it's certainly not a do every trip for us. So you can only book one FastPass. You can either only book Soarin' or Test Track in a day ahead of time. You can't book both, which is why I did Soarin' here and then Test Track here. And again, this seas was completely unnecessary, which is why the time, like, this is for 7:50 p.m. And I'm like, well, I have it. I might as well use it. If for some reason it ends up being really busy, which I've never, ever seen a line for the seas, I'm like, whatever, I guess I have it. Which is why the time is later, because and they're not in order. And then here, again, is back to Soarin'. And Spaceship Earth, completely unnecessary, but I had it, so I thought I'd use it. 7 Dwarfs. My philosophy is if you don't have a FastPass ahead of time, you will not ride it. So that's why I have it twice. So we know we'll ride it twice. Peter Pan, we never ride without a FastPass. That line gets horrifically long very soon. So yeah, this is the way that I've been planning for a long time, and I saved the template on my computer. So once I have all this filled in, I can go and reprint it and just you know, enter in my FastPasses and dining reservations and such, so that it's not nearly as messy. But yeah, then I have it good to go. And it really is not nearly as stressful as I think a lot of people think it is. But this way, I think keeps everything in one place, and it makes it very obvious. I really don't think it is overwhelming, and I think I really wanted to explain to people who have never been to Disney before that it is not nearly as complicated as it seems. And you know, they think, oh my gosh, I have to book all these dining reservations, and I have to make all these FastPass reservations, and I have to decide what park I'm going to visit, and that's not for 6 months. And it's really not. I really don't think it's a big deal. Once you've decided if you're going to visit the morning or evening extra magic hour parks, I think that really helps a lot. And I think if you have base tickets, I think it would probably make the decision easier as far as where you're going to visit, because you don't have to worry about that. But then you don't have the flexibility, of course. But yeah, I hope you guys found this helpful, and hopefully it made it seem a little bit less intimidating for you, in that you don't have to do it all at once. Just plan out one thing at a time. First pick your parks, then pick your dining reservations, and then lastly, you're going to pick your FastPass reservations. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.